The X100T has a lot going for it. Now I have a Leica, so why in the world would I be interested in such a small camera as this? Don't let the small size of the Fuji X100 fool you. This is a great little camera. It's got a fantastic lens, an amazing sensor. It's super versatile. You can do pretty much anything you want to do on the street with a Fuji X100T in this case. It's the third version of the Fuji X100. Started with the X100, went to an X100S, now the T. And the third time's the charm, really. They've made minor improvements across the board, added a few new features that had never appeared in any camera before. And what it really boils down to is it's a little bit better in every way than any version of an X100 that's come before it. I've been shooting this camera for 2 months. Yeah, it's been 2 months that I've been doing this review, and this has been my prime camera. I haven't had to use this camera all the time. It's just really enjoyable to shoot with. It's a 16 megapixel, 16.3 megapixel, I don't know, I have to look it up. X-Trans sensor. And an X-Trans sensor, just in layman's terms, basically Fuji has rearranged the way that the RGB pixels are laid out on the sensor. So there's less color moire and they don't have to use a low pass filter, which means it's sharper. This sensor resolves greater than its megapixel count, so it's going to look a lot better than another typical 16 megapixel sensor. That's good. Also, the sensor is got fantastic dynamic range, especially in the highlights. I find that I can overexpose by a stop, even a little bit more than a stop, and pull it all back in Lightroom and still get great results. And this means you can do what you used to do in the days of film. You can expose for the shadows and print for the highlights. So overexpose just a touch, bring it back in Lightroom, and you're going to get great shadow detail. You know, I know I've been doing a review of the camera, so I had to use it, but after like about a week, this ended up becoming the camera that I wanted to take out with me. And the Leica stayed in the bag, and the X100 was my primary camera for the whole time that I was doing the review. And why? Well, it's small, it's lightweight, it doesn't feel like I'm going out to take pictures. It feels more like my companion. And that changes the way that I see the world. And photography started becoming more conversational. It was less about looking for structure in the world and going out for the specific purpose of taking pictures, and it became more like, you know, hey, I'm actually participating in the events that are happening around me, and the camera's just there, ready for me to take a picture when I want to. I'm a manual focus shooter. I learned how to take pictures when there were no autofocus lenses. So I automatically think of the world in autofocus. And when it comes to street, I do a zone focus. And for anyone that doesn't know, you basically set your focus distance at the hyperfocal distance of the lens. So you get as much depth of field in that shot as possible. It's fast. You never have to worry about adjusting or fiddling with your camera. So I was kind of worried when I shot. This is an autofocus camera, primarily. It has a manual focus mode, but forget it. It's an autofocus camera. And I was worried, like, how am I going to actually work with this? How is this going to affect my style of shooting? And there's ways around it. You know, it's fast enough that for most normal moving subjects, things where you see something and you want to get a shot of it, you can focus on that within a quarter of a second. Just basically look, done, right? So as long as you're willing to be a little preemptive on how you're shooting, so you're not just, you know, oh, I missed it. No, you see something happening, you set up your shot, you're taking the picture. It's not that long of an ordeal, but for really fast moving things, I would just simulate what I would do with a manual focus lens. Shooting at f8, my hyperfocal distance is going to be approximately 11 feet. So I look out in the world, find something that's around 11 feet, autofocus on it, and use the autofocus lock on the back, boom. Now I can shoot with hyperfocal distance as long as I want. So if something's happening, there's a fast moving scene, or I'm in a crowd, I don't have to worry about focusing, trying to get that person, I can work with it. You might think, oh, how are you gonna know what 11 feet is? Well, you know, if you're on the street, sidewalk tiles are normally 3 or 4 feet. So take 3 or 4 feet of sidewalk tiles, focus on the ground. Or I'm 6 feet tall, so if I laid down, twice of me would be around 11, 12 feet. You guesstimate, you've got depth of field. This is not, you know, we've got 30, 40 feet of depth of field to work with. So if you're a little close or a little far, it's not gonna make a difference. But you can still do zone focusing with an autofocus camera. It's not really that much of an impediment. The reality is, autofocus is the present and future of all cameras. There really aren't making cameras with manual focus lenses anymore, so we're going to have to deal with it. Either you're going to fiddle with these little fly-by-wire manual focus rings that are terrible and horrible to use, because you have to look inside the viewfinder to find out what your focus distance is, and then by then you've already missed your shot. You're like, oh, it's gone. Just don't even bother with it. Just use the autofocus, adapt to it, and you're going to be fine. The Fuji X100T uses the same battery system that the X100S and the X100 before it use. I think it's a NP, what is it, an MP95. I wish they were twice as powerful as they are, but they're not. It's just the system. This camera is it's a 4 battery camera for me. I need to have, if I'm out for 6-8 hours of shooting, I'm going to go through 3 batteries. And I want to have one in spare in case I want to go out at night or in case things aren't completely charged the next morning. So 4 batteries makes a lot of sense. You're going to go through batteries. Things use batteries. The best part is you can recharge them, so it's not the end of the world. Would I recommend this camera? Yeah. It's under $1,500. You're getting a well-rounded, versatile camera that's going to last you for years. You know, I guess the best street photography camera is the camera that doesn't get in the way of you taking shots on the street. And I think that's really what's happening with the X100. Plus, you know, its style and its form factor really inspire you to get out shooting. The X100T, the X100S before it, they're just fun to use. It's the kind of thing that you want to throw around your neck. You want to take it with you wherever you go because it's not going to be a major burden to lug this thing around. You know, this is maybe a quarter of the weight of my Leica M240. The Leica M240 was like a tank. Every time you shot with it, you had to do push-ups before just so you're ready to carry the fucking thing around. This is like no problem. Like, ask anyone that knows me. I've had it around my neck every day. Ever since it came into my possession. It's just fun to have with you, and why wouldn't you want to take pictures if you have it? So there's been situations where I normally wouldn't shoot because my Leica would be in my bag or I would be at home. I just pull the camera up and get a quick shot of someone on the subway, something cool happening around me. That's why I have a camera, is to take pictures. So the X100T uses a 23mm fixed lens. So you can't change the lens on this, but really it's the only lens you're going to want to shoot with on the street. It's the only lens I shoot with. I had an interchangeable lens camera for years and only kept one lens on it because it's what I needed. Most street photographers are going to go for a 35mm field of view because it just feels right on the street. You can shoot whatever you want, but most guys are shooting 35. So a 23mm lens on an APS-C camera approximates the 35mm field of view, but it does something else. Let me explain how this works. Lenses, especially wider angle lenses, will expand the depth in the scene. So the wider the lens is, the more it will push the background back from the subject. And that's why, again, if you're, I got a really bad cut, that's why if you're shooting a portrait, it compresses that scene. So if you're using like a telephoto lens. So 23mm lens, even though you're 35mm field of view, it's giving you a bit more depth in that scene and creates a little bit more of a 3-dimensional sense of space. This is one of the things you'll see if you look at Jack Simon's work from Burn My Eye. His work all has this great sense of 3-dimensional place. And you can see it if you have a foreground, a midground, and a subject. The subjects seem to exist in that 3-dimensional world in Jack Simon's photos. And not in mine. My photos are flat and terrible. That's another thing. But his do this. And part of that is the APS-C sensor in the X100 that he shoots with. You know, chances are most people will never notice this. It's a weird, subtle phenomenon that most people aren't going to notice, but it's there. And it's something to be aware of when you're shooting with a crop sensor camera. If you really want to see the pictures, head over to streetshooter.com and have a look at the written review. There's a bit more information in there. I got a lot of sample pictures that you can look at full size, see exactly what this little camera is capable of. Look, I don't want to make it sound like I'm over the top in love with this camera. It's a great little camera. It's inexpensive, it's affordable, it's easy to use, it works, it produces great results. It's got a proven track record on the street. A lot of people are shooting with this. It's going to do you well. If you're looking for a street camera, if you're looking for something small, compact, quiet, X100T's got to be the top of your list. If you have an X100S, it's pretty close to the T. The T's got a few things, it's got a few advantages. It's a little bit better overall in just about every possible way. It's a little bit better, but not tremendously better. So you might be still okay with your S. For my money though, I'm digging the Fuji X100T. And that's it. Check out my website. Check out the website. There's a bunch more information on there, a bunch of sample pictures. Go look at it and get out there and shoot something. because that's really what it's all about.
What's the main difference between the X100T and the X100S?
I don't
Because
know.
I've got an S.
You know, listen, if you've got a Fuji X100S, you're going to get more out of the Fuji X100T. It's got a couple new features. It's got that electronic rangefinder function in the here. I don't want to go into it for this, but it's got a few new features that are going to make it worthwhile. But you know, it's still the same camera. It's going to, at the end of the day, you're going to get about the same results. It's the same sensor. It's the same processor. It's not going to be that much faster. But the usability on the X100T, I found, is a lot better because they rearranged some of the buttons. Oh, you're going to see my clip. It comes in silver and black. The X100T comes in silver and black. And one of the things that I like about the silver is, wow, the silver version this time around looks better than the black version. It's a different kind of silver. This is kind of hard to describe. It's a little bit darker than the X100S silver, which always kind of looked a little chintzy to me. This one looks good. So if I got, or when I get an X100, if or when I get, for my money, I like the silver version better. I think it just looks cool.
There you go.